Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, babies, hey, babies, babies. Hey, babies. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. You better be nice when you cover my team, everyone. You better be nice. Don't report on what you see, everyone. I can't believe I have to stick up for an anonymous blogger today. I'm going to have to do that. I have to do that today. I'll do it later. It's not going to lead with it. I got to do that later today because it's making the rounds that a guy who, no offense, I don't know him, but I've seen his name in my feeds because he loves the Wizards and had been credentialed, and he got it taken away because he tweeted something apparently, and it wasn't terrible what he tweeted.
Yes.
Come on, guys. Ted, come on, man. You got enough on your plate right now to deal with that. Come on. Come on. You have some guy who for free is covering your team every day, and for the most part, for 10 years, you were perfectly fine with the things he wrote, and he took a picture of one thing and said that guy might get traded, and you took his credential away? Come on, man.
What are we doing here?
What are we doing? Come on.
What are we doing here?
What are we doing?
It's 2024, playa.
I know. No. It's 2024, playa.
Also, you and I have worked in media
People
long enough.
People are not putting resources into covering your team.
Right.
Why would you do that?
That's right. Exactly. We've been in this long enough, too. If you don't like something a reporter says, go talk to him about it.
Talk to him about it.
And
I was like, when I saw this quote, I saw this start going around, and the few Wizards people that are active about it and were like kind of outraged. I'm like, he must have said something crazy on Twitter. And then as it turned out, he didn't.
Right.
Because I'll hear him out if he's like, you know what this guy does, but and when he's not playing, I'd be like, hey man, you got to know the rules.
Right.
There is the line. You can't blow people up for no good reason.
That's right.
But
exactly.
he didn't do that. He
Right.
didn't do that. So I feel for this dude. Anyway, whatever. We'll get around to it.
I'm shocked over here because someone just tagged me on a post about the Nationals, and they revamped 2 of their uniforms, and I've never seen uglier uniforms in this city's.
Because they've been getting it right in recent years. That cherry blossom thing is amazing.
Right.
Yeah, that thing's amazing.
Turn this around. This is their new road uniform.
Is that for real?
That's for real.
That's not Photoshopped?
That looks like a fake Chinese jersey that I could buy on eBay.
It just says Washington. It's in white. The colors are not red, white, and blue.
It's gray.
That's gray?
Because it's a road
And then
gray.
what is that, black and orange?
No, it's red and blue. It's their normal colors.
It doesn't look like it.
It is. And then
You're telling me the Commanders are still wearing burgundy and gold, but I'm not sure.
Right.
Sorta.
Do you want to see
they
this
are.
white jersey? Because I got questions.
Sure. I don't know. I don't like it, but whatever. It's the capital with the
Same
W
thing. It looks
on
like
it.
a fake jersey I should be able to buy on eBay. It does
This
not
is
look
what they're
like...
wearing this year?
Yeah.
Oh, this is from the Nationals.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
so this is real.
This is real. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'm not trolling. This is somebody. Our guys Talk Nats just tagged me in it.
Yeah, I see somebody. Crinkle writes, first one sick, second one looks like spring training jersey.
Yes.
If that's their spring training jersey, great.
Fine, but
apparently it isn't. All right.
Okay. By the way, this is going to send me on a mini tangent here. The old Nationals over there, once they released the cherry blossom uniforms, because it was a good look.
Those are killer great.
Thought that meant kill the curly W. I haven't talked about this on the air that much.
Yeah, why are they doing that?
I don't know. It's the one thing that is irking me more than any other thing that's happening in the city brand-wise.
That's your brand.
For some reason, they don't like the curly W anymore.
That's your classic brand.
Everybody wears that, man. Everybody.
That's baseball from yesteryear. What are you doing?
Correct.
Why would the Yankees ever get away from the NY on their hat? They never would do that. Why would you do that? Why would the Red Sox ever get rid of that B? Why would Detroit ever get rid of that D? Why would they ever do that?
Right.
And I know the Nationals don't date back like that, but technically Washington baseball does, obviously with some gaps, but it does. Why would you not want that?
Right. I don't. And you haven't been here long enough that you can reestablish your brand like that. That's your OG. That you're stuck with
Always.
That. And it's fine. KD has a W tattoo on him somewhere. I think he has it on his wrist or his arm or something.
No, I agree with you. You see less and less of it, and I don't understand.
Right.
I don't. That doesn't make any sense to me. I agree with you. Why would you get away from that? What, do people not like it? Who doesn't like it? Every time I go to a game, people are wearing that hat all the time. Who doesn't like it?
My uniform sources tell me it's because people high atop the organization still think it looks like the W from Walgreens, which
it does. But so what?
So what? Who cares? Right.
That's
exactly.
Walgreens' problem.
Correct.
Not our problem.
That's right.
Y'all copied us.
That's right.
Man. All right. Okay.
We started to start the show on 2 sad notes.
All right. Let's see. Let's start with what is clearly, we knew this was coming. The field is now cleared. Ben Johnson's in the bag here.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's funny because it was clear as day, and I'm on the inside more than most. Not as much, as I like to, not like I used to be because we have a new group, so I'm getting to know them a little bit. But obviously, I know more than most. And I'm pretty convinced that he was the target from the get-go with Adam Peters. I was never of the mindset, and a lot of people were writing and saying this, that this was a quote-unquote package deal. They don't have the same agent, and Keim will vouch for me on this. The sides there were always pushing back on this idea of, if they do hire Peters, do not assume.
Right.
Don't assume. But, is he their top target? Yes. Is he interested in the job? Clearly. Is he sought after? Yes. But no one else seems to be waiting him out anymore. So the truth-telling has finally occurred. He's going to be the next head coach here as of either early next week or the day after the Super Bowl. That's what's right. going to happen. And obviously it's dependent on what happens with the Lions this weekend. But I anticipate that he will be named the head coach of the team by midweek next week if the Lions are out. And if they're not, they'll go have the interview with him, and then they'll just have to lay low for a week and a half, let him do his thing. Hopefully he gives Detroit their first ever Super Bowl championship. Then we just hired the Super Bowl coach, So so let's see how it plays out. But after Atlanta started to worry me because they clearly were looking at a different grouping of coaches, experienced coaches, which they got one actually, but they were shooting for the moon. They were we're going to go get either Belichick or we're going to get Harbaugh. Harbaugh was earmarked somewhere else, but that's why I was never worried about them initially, because they were kind of swimming in a different pool. We're looking at these, high-end coordinators. That's the guy we want. They weren't. They were looking for something else. So I was never overly worried about them. And then when the Belichick thing seemed to slide the wrong way, Harbaugh won't take the next interview, goes to L.A., I'm like, well, if they don't hire Vrabel, then guess where they're going to come around to. But them hiring Morris, not that it's not a great hire, it is for them. It screamed to me, Johnson must have told him. Or his camp must have told him.
That's what I thought, too. That's what I thought.
That's how I read it.
Yes.
They didn't even wait it out. They didn't even wait, because the options for Morris, like everybody else, were starting to get limited because all the jobs had closed up except for Seattle. So he didn't have the leverage to say, hire me now, I'm going to go somewhere else. He didn't have that.
Exactly.
But Atlanta decided, let's just move on, and because they're not going to get him, which, of course, tells you everything you need to know. This guy, short of a shock, is going to be the next head coach of the team. It's just a matter of when he gets named, and it could happen as early as mid next week, and it just depends on the Lions, how they fare this weekend.
Yeah,
that's it.
Exactly. Yeah. It told me right away that it was, if you're still thinking about this, stop thinking about it. That's what it read to me.
The teams who did talk to him probably did go back to him and say, are we going to talk to you again next week? And then he must have sent the message across that no.
Right. Yep.
No.
Yeah,
well,
right,
why
exactly.
would he say that?
Yeah.
He is taking another job, this one.
Yep.
So,
right.
Again, this is really, and it just might be saturation of coverage in social media now. No one has done anything surprising.
Yeah.
Not a single thing that's happened here throughout all of this. 8 teams had openings. Not one of them has had an out of left field turn of events, in my opinion, except for maybe Vrabel. But if you were paying close attention to what was going on that had gone sideways.
Right.
And so, I guess that one is a mild surprise. But the people in Tennessee weren't surprised by it. They may be surprised at who was hired to replace it, maybe. But that candidate was a logical one, an offensive coordinator on a highly successful team. They've got a young quarterback. That made a lot of sense to me, that it could have been any of those guys to do that.
I do think the Morris one was surprising once they interviewed Belichick a couple of times. That one, but it's not surprising he's got a gig. Trust me, I'm not trying to say that. But it is surprising that it got hot and heavy fast with him. Graziano was on with the morning show today, and he said that basically Morris is the one that changed the game. Morris was at Blank's house doing the interview with everybody, and half of the people in the room had worked with Morris the last time he was there. And all of a sudden, everybody was like, why did we ever let this guy go? Because he actually should have actually been really considered for the job when he was the interim down there.
Yes.
And essentially,
which was a long time ago now.
Of course. It was
a long time ago.
But basically, they said that he killed the interview so much that they were like, how could we not bring this guy kind of back, is what they were
There's
saying.
Also the reality of job preservation that has to have played a role here. I think the people in Atlanta were worried they'd all get cleaned out if Belichick was hired. And they have a reasonable fear of that. It may or may not have happened, but if Belichick is hired by blank, because that's who's going to make that hiring, which is, yes, the owner often makes a hiring, but like in this case, what is happening here is Adam Peters was hired. They have a search committee, but Adam Peters is literally, in the middle of, this is the person I want to hire, and they're listening to him, and they may be advising him otherwise, but clearly they aren't. They've earmarked the person they want to get. Down in Atlanta, it sounds like blank got away from the trusted circle of people who build the roster and advise him, and he's the one that went, I want to get Bill Belichick here, and then they had a mini mutiny of, if you do this, and it probably was largely, we are scared that we're all going to get blown out of here because he's going to come in here and want his people close the circle down, and they're all going to get blown out. And that's a reasonable fear for them. And I think that won. Because they probably went back to him and said, there's a lot of good candidates. I know he's great, but there's a lot of good candidates. But you may have to change a lot of things to bring him in here, or he may ask you to change a lot of things. Is that really what you want? Like, you're going to bring in this coach. It's not as simple as he's going to work with us. He probably isn't.
Yes, right.
So pick a side. And that's putting the owner in a tough spot. And he, some of these, what I've heard about him is is very loyal to a lot of people.
Yep.
And
he's a great owner.
So I think it probably had dawned on him that, if I do hire this guy, I'm sure they had conversations like, what are you going to want to do? And I'm sure Belichick was honest with him and said, I want the power to make decisions. And then once he said that, you know what that means for everybody else. They're hiding in their offices looking for other jobs because they're scared that they're going to get, and that's not good. You don't want that to happen. And I don't buy into that team needs to totally rip it up and start from scratch. I actually think they have a pretty good roster. They don't have a quarterback, but they have a pretty good roster. He wanted somebody, blank wants an experienced person. That's why they hired an experienced person. They want an experienced person who's done this before to come in and work with the group that's there to make them better. The fear was Belichick was going to go above and beyond that because he's earned the right to do so. And that's why I think he wasn't hired there. I think some of these other jobs like ours, I know everyone was speculating for months about him coming here, and I'm like, it's not happening because that's not what we're doing. We are empowering a new general manager to be the head of the front office. You would undermine him immediately by bringing in Bill Belichick, which is why you were going to have the coach-centric model again, of which Josh Harris said explicitly, we're not doing. We're not going to do that. So is Belichick willing to come in and just be the coach? No. And nobody believes that.
Yep.
So that's why he was never a candidate here, and probably why in Atlanta it became a power struggle. And I'm going to go with the internal people there were like, you're going to lose us one way or the other.
Exactly, yeah.
100%. We're either going to get fired because you empowered Belichick to fire us, or he's just not going to work with us. It's going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You could tell him you have to work with these guys. And he goes, fine. And then it goes wrong. Whose side are you going to take?
Yep. Right.
You're going to take his.
Yeah.
So sounds like it was almost like a half mutiny that was won by the people that were there, and they get a guy who's going to work with the group that is there, and they did make a good hiring. He's a very good coach. He's got an incredible reputation. I said this when this process first started. They're more open-minded than people are reporting, albeit I still think and felt from the get-go Ben Johnson was their target. But I think they will be open-minded to Mike McDonald. I think they'll be open-minded to Raheem Morris, and I think they'll be open-minded to Dan Quinn, and then maybe they'll be surprised by somebody else. This isn't a done deal or a slam dunk like it was with Peters, but this guy was always the number one candidate, always the number one choice, and they're just waiting him out. And considering everything else closed up and he's going to take a job, well, guess what, guys? We got the guy. I mean, I will be stunned if he's not the coach here next week. They've waited it out this long.
Sure.
They could add any of these people along the way. They didn't hire any of them.
That's right.
So gig's up. We're going to get him, but that's the good news. They said, we want Adam Peters to be our GM. They got him. they are more than hinting, we want Ben Johnson to be our coach. They're about to get him.
Yep.
So the front office has, from step one of, is this new ownership group going to be able to do the things they want to accomplish? Is Peter's going to be a great GM? Hopefully. Is Ben Johnson going to be a great coach? Hopefully. You don't know that. It's all unknowns. But from the starting point of, can these guys get the deals done that they want to get done for the people that they want to hire? They're 1 for 1 so far, and they're about to be 2 for 2. That's a very good sign. And step 3 is going to be, watch how much money they have to spend, because they're about to do that too. Adam Peters is going to, because of cap room, because of the draft capital, because of the roster flexibility, they're going to go to him and they're going to ask this ownership group to spend a lot of money, upfront money, immediately. And let's see what happens there. That's step 2. And if they just go about and do that, then they've checked off every early box that we've been looking for. They've changed the structure. It does feel like a more inclusive environment. Mm-hmm. It feels like an environment that's open-minded to a lot of people's thoughts, not closed-minded, not closed circle. And they are looking at candidates and they're saying, these are the people we've targeted to bring in here. Hopefully they'll be right about it. And we've gotten the deals done. So this is a good start. I mean, it's a really, really, it's everything we had hoped when the ownership group got the team, that they would be able to start doing things like this. And then, the next step will be, how do they handle free agency? Because it's going to be vibrant for them. How do they handle the draft at number 2? They've got interesting decisions to make around that, and I can get into all of that. And then number 3, which will be once we get through the football side of this, where's the stadium going to be? And this is a huge first year for them. They're walking into a humongous transitional year, and let's see how they handle it. But the first steps of it are A+.
Yeah.
A+.
Well, it's also just the one thing on Johnson, too. It's clear, though, that this is I want to be there over other teams. It might sound simple, but it's never been that way.
No, it's never been that way.
So I'm just saying, the fact
Adam
that
Peters said, I'm not taking other interviews because I want that job.
Exactly.
Ben Johnson clearly is making it known. He was the number 1 candidate that didn't have experience as a head coach, and he's making it clearly known that's the place I actually want to go, because these other teams are filling their jobs without even getting around to the in-person interview with him.
Exactly.
So, is this all going to work out? Who knows? But from can we get the people we want, because this is an attractive place, which has always been an argument about the previous ownership. Remember, that was always the argument.
Yep.
No one's going to want to go there. And I used to laugh at that because they would get really talented people to take the job anyway. But it was a little Tepperish. You kind of had to overwhelm them with something. We all kind of knew the structure was still a little messed up, and they were going to have to try to work within the boundaries of what was there. This one feels more opened up to new ideas, fresh ideas, collaborative process. You're going to be able to do your job that you've been hired to do. Let's work in lockstep and align together. Let's take the walls down in the offices. Stop getting off your cell phone and leaking stuff to Albert Breer. Let's work together.
Right.
And we're heading down a path that is very, very, very positive. So the Raheem Morris news that came out late yesterday, I'm like, oh my God, it actually is definitively happening. Because the Atlanta one scared me, because I'm like, for some reason, they're not hiring Belichick. They're not going to get Harbaugh. They don't love Vrabel, or they probably would have just moved on that fast.
Yep, right.
So they are possibly eyeing the guy we want. They're the last piece of competition for him. And by them doing this, they're just openly admitting maybe they loved Raheem Morris more than him. Fine.
Sure.
But they didn't even bother to have the in-person interview, because Raheem Morris also was running out of options. So they didn't have to do what they did yesterday, but they did it because they're not going to get that guy. Whether they wanted him or not, they're not. So, win for us.
Schefter, I think, said this morning as well. He was saying the Rams were being very loud about Morris too.
Yes,
by saying
they were.
He deserves a spot. Somebody needs to hire him.
Les Snead did a 3-minute diatribe on the end of season press conference saying you have to hire this guy.
Right. And now I buy it, but remember, they do get a 3rd-round pick because of the hiring practices.
They do.
But I will say
they do. But I believe them.
So do I. I
believe them.
Yeah, it's just worth noting.
No, I was saying this too. Like from the get-go, I go, I'll be open-minded to him because I know what his reputation is.
Right.
The players love him. The players love him. He's done this before. They've been winning a lot. I don't think he played with a full deck last year, but I thought their defense played well enough in the situation that they had. I don't think they had enough talent there to be really good on that side of the ball, but they did enough. They were in the playoffs with that team. So I think it's the right guy for them to take a shot on. It's probably the right coach for them, but it's also clearly we're not going to wait any longer because we're actually not going to get that other guy. Whether we want him or not, we're not going to get that guy, which means he is coming here. That's happening.
Yes.
Short of Seattle shocking me, but I don't think that's the direction they're going.
I don't think it's happening either.
I'm still waiting. I can't believe they haven't hired Dan Quinn yet. So who are they waiting for? That's why I think they're waiting for Mike McDonald. That's what I think is happening. And honestly, that makes so much sense to me. They're watching what he did to that Shanahan offense and Bobby Slowick, and they're going, that's who our direct competition is. This guy clearly he's figured them out more than most, and let's bring him in here and make this the counter to that offense.
Sure, yeah.
And see if we can win that way.
Yeah.
If we're the defense that knows how to shut them down, we have a shot to win our division every year. If we're the defense that can't, and we haven't, for a number of years, because nobody seems to be able to do it. It's the proliferating offense throughout the league. Well, then, what are we doing? Like, we have to win this division. McVay and Shanahan aren't going anywhere. San Francisco's roster is better than ours for a while. The Rams suddenly, after all the FM picks and all that stuff, they're getting out from under all the cap problems they were. They're going to be able to rebuild very fast. They've got room to maneuver again, so that roster's going to get better. Stafford was very good again, so I would assume he's back next year. If I'm them, that's the guy I want. I need somebody who knows how to handle that offense. I don't know what he knows about it, but he's figured out how to handle it, and he seems like the right guy. So maybe that's what they're doing, that they're waiting him out to see if he wants the job. And if he doesn't, they'll probably give it to Dan Quinn. But if he does, that actually feels like the right move for them, in my opinion.
I think it's either they're clearly going defensive coach. I mean, that's
it looks
that's
way.
What it's got to be. The other thing is, I think probably, unfortunately for Aaron Glenn, that for Glenn, I'm sure as more people are watching, they're kind of like, yeah, that Hutchinson guy blows up every other play. No wonder their defense is so good. It's probably not the best look that they have all these studs on their defensive line that they're kind of like, oh, no wonder they're amazing. But that's why I think they're still going to go defensive either with Quinn or with McDonald.
Yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. And with Quinn, does he just go back to Dallas? I guess. Could he be the DC here as an assistant head coach?
Maybe. I mean,
I am not against that.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I've said this a lot about Ben Johnson or whoever comes in here, these first-time head coaches. What I really want to know is, who are you hiring as your coordinators?
Right.
On offense, I assume you're going to bring somebody who you've worked with, who's going to implement your offense. And so I feel comfortable with that. And everybody says he's head coaching timber. Everybody says this about him. It's the defensive side of the ball. Who you bringing in here? I want to see who that is. If they could land someone like that,
right?
That is a home run. Would he jump from Dallas to come here for the same position? They'd have to give him assistant head coach.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they wouldn't do that, but is that really in play? I doubt it.
So. I don't think so.
I doubt it, but that would
Jerry, I feel like, would block it too. He would say,
probably,
how much money do you want to not do
this? You
this?
can't go there.
Right.
Exactly. If I'm him, I'm like,
right.
You can't go there.
Right.
I don't want that. So let's see who his defensive coordinator is. If it is a relatively big-ish name that comes with him, like the Panthers just changed their coaching staff. Their defensive coordinator is raved about. Is he looking for an upgraded position to be here? That would be a home run if that ends up happening. That would be a huge home run. Or is Ben Johnson going to steal someone off of Aaron Glenn's staff to come here and be the defensive coordinator? Maybe. Yeah. I'm assuming he's going to bring somebody from the Lions staff to be the offensive coordinator here.
I did want to touch on that because we haven't talked about it at all. He's got a couple former Redskins on his staff. Mark Brunell's on that staff.
Antoine Randall is
on that staff. Yeah. Brunell, your last starting quarterback when they won a playoff game.
That's right.
So
that's right.
So that was,
people keep pointing out Hank Fraley, who I guess is an O-line coach and then could be an offensive coordinator. I guess they keep earmarking him as a possibility to come over here in an elevated position.
Sure.
I mean, there's no doubt he's going to take somebody from his staff to be his offensive coordinator because they've worked together. I don't know who that is, but that's the likelihood. The defense is a whole other guess. But there are actually some very good, viable candidates that are out there that could work with him. And that's going to be the most important next step for him to me. Who's your defensive coordinator? Who is it?
Right.
You go get this guy from the Panthers who might be looking for a gig, who people love, think he's great, and now is, wondering if he fits in with that, new coach that was there. Well, that's a win-win-win.
Right.
That's suddenly a win-win-win here. So we'll see.
Right.
All right, let me take a quick break. Bram watches the show. He's been 630 Sports Capital. So I just watched some preview of some new Jordan Peele movie called Monkey Man.
Oh, yeah.
It looks unbelievable.
Yeah. It's he's a comic book character, yeah.
It looks amazing.
Yeah, I've heard it looks incredible. I haven't watched it yet. I saw like a screenshot or two.
Oh, man. I'm in, baby. I'm in. I'm in. When he did Key and Peele, you never would have convinced me that he was going to make movies like this.
Not only that,
classic, weird, almost psychotic thrillers. It's weird, the stuff he makes, because he's clearly got a bizarre mind. But this, I thought Get Out was just unbelievably
banger
great.
After banger. It's not just one. It's like every movie he makes now is legitimate.
They're
did you see Nope?
I saw Nope. I thought Nope was okay.
No, but I thought it
was okay.
I thought
it was definitely original and unique.
Yes,
There's nothing like it.
Yeah, I thought
There's
it was
nothing
good.
like it.
It reminded me of an old thriller that kind of like Signs, like that M. Night Shyamalan vibe. That because then M. Night Shyamalan just lost it. Like he couldn't make a movie all of a sudden. That's what it remanded me of.
He keeps making them, and every time I see one, I'm like, it's all right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but
it's actually predictable. It's all right.
Yeah.
But this preview for this one called Monkey Man looks unbelievably great. I'm in. All right. So I wanted to bring up this, which is, So where is it? Here we go. Andrew Marchand took a hammer to Tony Romo and Jim Nantz.
Oh boy.
So last year started the, I don't know if I like Romo anymore.
Yeah. Right.
Feeling.
Right.
In and around. And then came out the rumors that the honchos at CBS went to see him before the season.
Yeah.
Insinuated he wasn't preparing like he used to. The further away he gets, and this happens with a lot of players, the further away you get from the game, the less you can actually predict. When he was a year or two out, he still knew everything that was going on, and he was his magic trick. And a lot of guys could do this. London does this all the time in the booth with us. He could predict what they're going to do.
Sure.
They see it differently. Well, that's not happening as much. Okay,
it happened more this year than it did last year, though.
Yeah.
So it does tell you a little bit more prep probably helped him.
But then there's the, is this really a good watch now is where we're at.
Oh, stop it. We're at that point now. I like them still.
Do you?
Yeah. Okay, are the predictions happening as much anymore? No.
But what about we're getting a lot of he grunts too much, makes too many noises.
No, I'm fine with that. Especially
I don't dislike watching him. I really don't. But the criticism keeps ramping up on this as if he's not worthy of the position. And Marchand, who is a major, the fact that he wrote this, really was. He doesn't typically do that. He writes the news mainly. He opines a little bit. He typically writes the news. This felt like a precursor to CBS is about to cut ties with him. His last game is about to be the AFC Championship, and you're going to see that because if you read this piece that he wrote, he took a hatchet to them and was like, this is no good.
What I don't understand actually the most about Romo is fine if you don't like him not making the predictions or making the predictions, whatever. You know what Romo does, though, that I love the most? And I've talked about it with you before. I love that he gets excited when the game starts getting real tight. That you can basically hear him nudge Jim and go, here we go.
Yeah.
That he has fun with it. No one else does that anymore. Buck and Aikman, very down the middle, very much talk like
Buck
this.
Buck gets into it, though.
He does. But
when there's exciting play, he meets the moment. I describe it as, and I talk about when I do it, and when people ask me about it, I go, what you really, to be successful at it, is you've got to meet the moment.
Yes.
And not every moment's the most exciting thing you've ever had. A 3rd and 7 in the first quarter completion is a big deal probably, but it's not when it's 13-13 in the fourth quarter with 5 minutes to go. That's a really big deal. And then dependent on how it went down, you have to meet that moment.
Right.
And your energy has to hit at that right point. And it takes a long time to learn how to do that. I think Buck does that very, very, very well. I actually think he's toned down, but he is right where he needs to be when the play meets it.
What I'm getting at, though, is that's Buck. He's play-by-play man. Same with Tirico. Tirico lives up to the moment.
Yes.
Al Michaels' worst moment of the last few years was that Chargers game where he didn't.
Right.
But
the complaints about him were, where was the Al of old where he meets that moment?
Right. Those are all play-by-play guys. But when it comes to former players, I want to hear that excitement. You said it best, and I've heard it. London gets really excited in these big moments.
Yes.
You don't see it as much on TV because these players learn, they get kind of neutered when they get into a broadcast booth that it's kind of like, let it happen, analyze the game. It becomes very job-like. Romo's excitement to me has been like a nice breath of fresh air. It doesn't have to be every single broadcast. It doesn't have to be every single team. But Romo's excitement is fun. I don't care what you say about it.
I agree. I said this last year too. Was he not preparing the same way? Well, only they know if that was the case.
Right.
Was he being a little more lackadaisical because he's been a quarterback for a long time and he doesn't need to put in the time that the others do? I still think you do, no matter, because it does change every year. Like, it really changes every year. Like, you'll see very different variations. You'll be surprised. I mean, that's how the league, it moves forward. So was that the case? Maybe. But when I watch him, I don't think it's a bad watch. Like, I'm not turned off by them. And Nance is a pro's pro. And with Romo, he's a little different, and he's an acquired taste because he gets into it. Like, he, to me, is the NFL's version of Dickie V from in the past, where Dickie V, not everybody loved him, but you couldn't help but, feel like addicted to his excitement for the whole thing. Bill Raftery's the same way. Like, he's still, even at his age, gets really into the games. Isn't that what we want? And he gets into it. Like, he does. Is it too much? I mean, that's what seems to be the pushback here.
Well, here's the thing, too, though. What I would argue back as well, some of these guys mimic their careers. Like, Aikman was always very stoic in the pocket, always a stoic player, a leader, whatever. Romo was that. Romo ran around the field like it was backyard football.
Yes.
And would nudge his teammates and be excited on the sideline. That's who he is in the broadcast booth, too. Like, he's matching the personality that he played with. So, didn't you know what you were kind of getting into when you hired him? And you loved him year one. Why are you souring on it now? Just because it's quote unquote too much for you? Like, I don't know.
Listen to what he wrote here, and again, you'll hear it in here. I think the CBS executives are priming for that. This could change. He wrote this. He goes, Romo was a sensation at the time, and CBS wanted him on its side. When they walked into negotiations with NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell and his lieutenants, CBS ended up retaining the Sunday package of games, the playoffs, et cetera, for a certain amount of money. He goes, and he wrote this. Now, though, not even halfway through Romo's decade-long deal, CBS sports executives have an issue because Romo and his partner Jim Nance are manning broadcasts that lack chemistry, storytelling, much strategy, and levity, and it's routinely discombobulated. That is straight from the executives telling him that.
Do you get that vibe when you watch those games? Discombobulated?
There have been a few moments where I do believe that he veers a little too far off track, and then Nance is forced to reel it back in.
Sure.
And that's everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say Tirico does it with Collinsworth on a weekly basis.
Yeah, but Collinsworth doesn't veer too far away from the analysis of the game.
Yeah, but everyone hits the reset button as soon as a play starts again. I think that's fine. Like, how discombobulated can you get if the game is being called?
So it says this, unlike the old-time familiar combo of Buck and Aikman or the new tandem of Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen, Nance and Romo don't sound like best friends at a game, no matter how many times they say each other's names. It feels more like a nephew spitballing jokes and saying whatever comes to his head while his uncle is confused on how to react.
Okay, that's kind of funny, because there are some moments where Jim doesn't know what to say.
And with that, while I think that's really mean to write, I don't think it's that far off from the truth.
I will agree on that front. But that's what makes it funny, though. Seriously, that's part of the charm.
Let's see. Sunday, though, Nance nailed the Buffalo late missed field goal with a memorable call. No, he doesn't make it wide right. The two most dreaded words in Buffalo have surfaced again, which is a great, great call. He said he was mostly off again. He has been late to recognize big plays and mistakenly called incompletions as catches and vice versa. If he weren't calling the game, Nance comes across more like he would be in a luxury box than in the stands, and Romo at his best gives the vibe of someone you'd want to share a beer with in the upper deck. They don't match up. Ooh, man. And then he goes through the whole, when they first hired him, he was just off retirement. He could just look down and go, this is what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Then he got on him because they did the Steelers-Bills game, and Romo just out loud yelled I didn't realize they had a 1-2 punch at running back. Meantime, Jalen Warren, if you play fantasy football, you knew exactly who he was.
Right.
It's one of those things where it's you don't know who that guy is? He gets 10 carries a game.
Yeah.
He didn't come off the practice squad this week.
Right.
They've been doing that every week, Tony. I don't know if you're trying to be funny about it or but it does come off like you just kind of don't. No, it's my job every week to know everything that's going on with the other team. My focus as a home broadcast is not to spend too much time talking about them, but for the sake of being, educated about them.
Yeah.
Because when a moment comes up about somebody who's been, maybe someone that we don't talk about, some guy on the other team has some big game against us, and I can say, well, over the last few weeks, his role has increased and all this stuff, and I can at least give context to it. To be I've never heard of this guy is a little bit, outside the realm of getting ready for a game. It's a major miscue.
Yeah.
I have to assume that the people listening are following the NFL.
Yeah.
And, I don't have to spend a lot of time talking about the other team, but when these type of moments happen, I need to at least be educated to know what I'm talking about. And that was an example that Marchand gave that was like, come on, dude, you don't know who Jalen Warren is? Like, it's the playoffs. He's been part of the 1-2 punch for weeks now.
Right.
He gets a lot of run on that team, and in fact, has a really good per rush average. Did you not watch the game prep? Like, is what he's like trying to insinuate, and that's not good.
So we have a work ethic problem, is what it sounds like.
Maybe.
That's what it sounds like. Because I think overall the broadcast still sounds the same, if not, on par with year one.
And this one's not fair. Last week when the Bills did that stupid fake punt with DeMar Hamlin.
Right.
Well, they didn't notice immediately that Kansas City actually had 10 men on the field, which might have been part of I think they made that call either way. I don't think they made it because they were short a player, but they didn't notice it. You know what? I might not notice that. You're in real time, you got 20 seconds, and you don't assume that, unless you see somebody running off the field, you don't assume that they're short a man, but they were in this case. And he kind of hits him over the head for not really knowing that part of it, finding out after, Jay Feely, I guess, broke it and was like, they had 10 guys on the field, which is almost amazing that they stopped it anyway and all that stuff.
Right.
This is how he ends it. 2 weeks after that in Las Vegas, the duo will be in the center of the country's attention with 100 million viewers, give or take, for the Super Bowl. And at some point, the broadcast can't be about Gene, Tracy, or Jay. Jim and Tony need to figure this out, and they need to do it fast. The line about CBS Sports executives are expressing these worries, they told him that.
Yeah, right.
And they are okay with him writing this because you'll notice today as I'm reading this to you, there is no pushback from CBS Sports saying we love Jim and Tony as they head into the AFC Championship game tomorrow, debunking this. So they're letting this live.
Sunday, but yeah.
Sunday, which means to me, I think this is distinctly possible that they are actually this time around going to try to get out of this deal. And maybe it's Jason Kelce or maybe it's Greg Olsen who's getting booted from Fox. Right? Because Tom Brady's coming in all of a sudden in that booth. That's actually a very awkward situation now because Burkhardt and Olsen do a really, really good job together. So that's an awkward thing to do. But what are you going to do? Not put Brady in the booth? Of course you are. So where's Olsen going to go? Maybe they're trying to poach Olsen away from Fox and put him in the CBS booth and boot Romo out. That could be happening here. What I will say is this, and I'll just add this. It sounds like there's a tinge of Nance there, too, because the references thing, that sounds very much from him. Maybe. That's what it sounds like, at least. Could be. Which, still, though, I don't know. I think that's fun between them that sometimes Romo knows a few things that Nance doesn't. But maybe Nance, you know how this goes, doesn't appreciate that he doesn't know something every time he makes a reference. Now, I don't think this would happen, okay? I don't think this would happen. But does Fox suddenly want to allow Burkhardt and Olsen to stay together? Do Burkhardt and Olsen want to stay together? Do they want to go over to CBS and Nance comes over to Fox and works with Brady? Now, if he does that, Nance is no longer the voice of the Final Four. Well, he's not anymore of that anyway. Yeah, that's right. He's no longer the voice of the Masters if he does something like that. So that seems unlikely to me, but maybe that's what's in play here. They want to get Olsen, but maybe they could get Fox to go, give us Burkhardt and Olsen. We'll give you Nance to work with Brady. The Burkhardt-Olsen thing, don't underestimate this. These guys have been openly talking about how they are dealing with what's coming. Yeah. They're about to put the greatest quarterback of all time, who I think will be good at this, in the booth. And the people who are affected by it are kind of openly pushing back at this idea, saying, we've got a good thing going here. Something weird's about to happen, like real weird. Like Nance might end up going to Fox, or Brady might go to CBS. And they get out of that deal with him on Fox, and they just keep Burkhardt and Olsen, and they go, you know what? Maybe we don't want to pay him $40 million a year. Let's just send him over there and let CBS pay the $40 million a year or whatever it is. Something weird is about. I'm reading too much. I know I'm not reading too much into this. This is a primer for something really weird is going to happen with the top two booths. Watch. I mean, what it sounds like, it's
basically steamrolling towards.
Yeah, and
Things aren't going to
Romo-
stay the same.
And Romo's either going to end up on a lower tier or not do this next year.
Yeah.
That's what I think is going to
I
happen.
can see that happening.
All right, we'll be right back. Very much show ESPN 630 Sports Capital. Hey, do you want to win a trip to Las Vegas during the weekend of the big game? Enter now for your chance to win a trip for two to Las Vegas, which includes airfare. 2-night stay at Fontainebleau Las Vegas with a $150 credit, 2 tickets to the Fontainebleau Las Vegas big game viewing party at Blue Live Theater. All you got to do is text the word WIN to 95819. That's WIN to 95819. Standard messaging and data rates may apply. Contest rules at sportscapitaldc.com/contests. I will be doing the show from Radio Row at the Super Bowl Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of Super Bowl week, so not next week, the week after. So I'm very excited to head out to Vegas, my favorite place on earth, to go do the show out there. I'm already starting to line up a bunch of guests. They're getting a lot of people reaching out, so I'm very excited about that. Hopefully I'll have some Commanders people who are going to be out there as well to come on and talk. I'm hoping some of the brasses out there might be available to talk. I'm hoping. We'll see.
Yep.
So we'll do that. That'll be really, really fun. And then this weekend, Callow and I are going to be live at Dudley's in Shirlington from 1 to 3, live doing a show previewing the 2 championship games from 1 to 3 live. They've got really cool bar food and the beer choices and everything, and they've got this enormous projector. We did this last year. It was awesome.
Massive.
And like a ton of Eagles fans showed up last year. Considering that the Ravens are in this, I would argue get there very early. Like this is because they're the first kickoff. So if you really want to get a spot near that giant projector that's going to show the game, you're going to want to show up early, and we'll be there. So we'll say hi to us. Please. Thank you. All right, let me get into this Wizards reporter thing. All right, I want to start by saying this, and I mean this like respectfully. I don't know who this guy is.
Yep.
Okay, I don't, and I don't mean that mean. I just don't know who he is, but I have seen him in my feeds. His name is Neil Dalal, and apparently he covers the Wizards, and he's like a super fan of the team, and he writes for some blog or outlet. I'm not even sure who.
Yep.
But and I, because I'm in DC sports, I follow all these teams, and so his name is so it wasn't unfamiliar.
I've seen his tweets.
I've seen his name, and I mean this respectfully because I just don't know who he is. I've never spoken to him, and I don't go to a lot of Wizards games, but I've seen him pop up, and I do know that he covers the team for an outlet. And they respect him enough that he has been credentialed by them, right? This is not unusual now. You know, most of the traditional media outlets like ours or The Post or Athletic or, ESPN or whatever, they get their credentials. But more and more and more, there are people that cover for these independent sites getting credentialed because we're in a new media space. So
not only that, Ted was the first one to do that.
Yes.
Like he literally was the first guy to start credentialing some, outlets that are not traditional. By the way, he writes for Hoop District at Hoop District.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And again, not disrespectfully, I don't really know this and I don't read a lot of it, but like considering he's been credentialed for 10 years, he's played by their rules.
Yes.
Clearly.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So earlier today, I saw this because a bunch of people were retweeting it, that this guy put out a statement saying that he's done covering the team, not by choice, but because they revoked his credential today for something that happened. And he described this as having strived to be player-friendly and never meaning to offend anyone, but I dropped the ball because he tweeted a, quote, observation. Now, because I'm not following this person very much, I didn't know what he was talking about, right? And then it keeps getting amplified and amplified and amplified. And we've now found out what this is because it made the blog Awful Announcing, which is a huge sports media blog. So it's going to get back to Monumental now, big time.
If it didn't already.
Correct. I mean, they already knew there was going to be some blowback, but now there's going to be national blowback, right? This is starting to fall in line. Not to the same degree, but it's in the same bucket that happened to Kevin Brown with the Orioles, where all he did was say something that he observed that is a fact. All right.
Correct.
And maybe and I'll tell you what it is in a second, and maybe he opined just a touch too much and went a little farther than what the meaning was intended to be of this thing. But it doesn't change the fact that what he did, to me, did not amount to a capital crime. And I don't understand why the result was what it was. And I think that's why everybody's reacting to it. But this is what he said. And this is what they wrote about it. Anyone with a keen eye will match up a team's marketing efforts with its future personnel plans. Dalal is no different than any independent reporter covering the Wizards out of Washington, D.C. Earlier this season, he tweeted a photo of a Wizards promotional billboard, which did not feature the recently acquired Tyus Jones. Given reports early out of Washington that the team indicated the team planned to sign him long-term, his absence from the billboard was noteworthy. Jones would later retweet the post, according to Wizards fans online, where he was basically like, that's news to me, like one of those things, which then got the attention of the team. Then the team was probably like, we didn't intend it that way. He's gone too far. We'll talk to him about it. And he says, given the team itself was responsible for the billboard, punishing Dalal for talking about it is pretty silly. And then they go on to say all the things that have happened after this. But they basically said, you committed a crime here in coverage that is, you can't take it back, and you're just not allowed to be here any longer. So all he did was he saw a billboard that promoted some of the players. Let me guess. Poole, Kuzma.
Right. Poole,
probably
Kuzma,
Bilal,
Bilal, and then whoever else.
Denny maybe.
Yeah, Denny
whatever.
Maybe, yeah.
Like, I don't know who was on it,
Right.
but you can take a guess that it's probably 2, 3, all of those guys. Tyus Jones isn't on that billboard.
Yeah.
All he did was make an observation that in their marketing, they're not promoting him. Now, in fairness, he isn't one of the stars of the team.
Sure.
And will he be there long term? I don't know, but he's the starting point guard who is the third or fourth fiddle on the team.
Yep.
No offense. But, I mean, that's all it is. And so I don't think it's that big of a deal. If the Commanders put out a billboard and Terry's on it, and John's on it, Duran's on it, and they don't put Cam Curl, I would not assume that means they're not re-signing him.
That's right.
I would just, that might be for an observation. Someone might say something about that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean, right? It's just an observation. The fact that they took his credential away for just observing that happened and tweeting about it, you know what? Go to the guy and tell him, that's not what we meant. You pissed off our player. You went a little over the line. Just take it down.
Yep.
Or just say, I talked to team officials, and it doesn't mean what I'm insinuating, and sorry for the confusion. I just made an observation as you were.
That's right.
As you
exactly
were.
Right.
And it's so hypersensitive.
It is.
Guys, like, come on. The guy's been covering your team for 10 years for free.
Yep.
Come on.
Right.
You trusted him enough to be in there for a decade? Come on.
Right.
And I got to tell you, at 7 and whatever your record is, you got to be kidding shutting people out.
That's what I'm
because
saying.
Clearly, he's not killing you for decisions that are happening.
Right.
He's not killing you for the play. You just fired your coach you just gave an extension to. Come on. Like, it means you are incapable of being criticized, and it's not even criticism at all, without getting so hypersensitive about it that you overreact. Give him his credential back, for crying out loud. Like, come on. Come on.
This happened with the Commanders, or it might have been the football team. I think it was Commanders. At some point near the end of the season, they flashed a renewal logo. Yeah. Maybe it was the year they had Wentz. They flashed like a renewal for next season, and the guy on the billboard was Heineke.
Right.
And all the beat writers did the same thing. They're like, "Oh, this is just kind of interesting." They're saying renew for next year, and it's Heineke up there as like a prominent.
It's just an observation,
right? As a prominent.
It's a good observation. You
yes.
cover everything about them. What do you think? They're not going to say something about that?
I got it now. It was last year WFT because Fitzpatrick was signed as the starter, but Heineke was starting the whole year, and so they flashed. Renew your tickets, and it was a big picture of Heineke. And I remember it was Nikki, I think, that tweeted, and maybe Wino, maybe one or two of them was like, oh, isn't this interesting? Like, the guy who didn't start at quarterback is now the guy they're pumping to renew your season tickets.
Right.
There was no backlash on that. Simple observation.
Why would they?
Right. Simple observation. It doesn't mean anything. That's all it is.
And here's the craziest thing. Are you mad at Shams and Woj for reporting everybody but Bilal's on the trade block?
Right.
That includes the guy that you got hypersensitive about.
That's right. Exactly.
Come on. Like, listen, I don't know this guy. I don't know the outlet.
By the way, his day job, he's a spaceship engineer. He's covering the team for the love of the game. It's not even for for a day job. He does it
because he loves it.
Yes. You want those people around your team.
And he clearly did it to a point where you trusted him enough to give him a credential in the first place.
Yeah.
You're going to take it away over that? That is not a big enough crime to have that happen. This falls in the Kevin Brown bucket. What he did did not warrant the punishment that he got for it.
That's right.
And I don't know. I mean, does he even want his credential back? Who knows? Who knows?
He seemed apologetic about it, too. Like, it's not like he was
He's like, I took it down.
Yeah. You want people like that around your team. Seriously.
He's interested in you.
Yes.
You know how many other people are? Not many these days.
Not many. When's the last time Scott Abraham was out there covering the Wizards?
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Come on. Stop being so hypersensitive.
Yeah.
You want to push back about what people are saying about Potomac Yards? Have at it. You want to push back because he noticed you put up a promotional photo without one of the starting players on it? What are you mad about?
Right.
Grow up.
Yep.
Come on. All right, Keim's next. Brainwash the Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. All right, time for our weekly Friday visit with John Keim of ESPN and the John Keim Report. Obviously, we're going to talk about the coaching search, what I feel like is over at this point. A sort of a massive surprise either next week or the week after, depending on the Lions. But I do want to ask you this when I start here, because everyone knows you're a massive Ohio State fan. What do you make of Jim Harbaugh leaving Michigan?
I just hope the NFL does to him what they did to Jim Tressel and give him a 5-game suspension for violations he committed in college.
Can they do that?
That's what
they can't.
They did it to Jim Tressel. They did it to Tressel. Tressel because he lied about the whole tattoo thing, and so the NCAA was going to slap him with a penalty. So the NFL, when he was going to be like a running backs coach with the Colts, they suspended him for the first 5 games of the year.
You don't think the NFL? This is the head coach, though. They're not going to do that to him, are they?
No, of course not. Of course not. But I'll just say he's leaving at the right time. And guy can coach, but he's leaving at the right time. Okay.
And is this are you pumped for Ohio State that he's gone? Did you want to have him stick around and beat him?
I'd rather he stuck around. And but you know what? The rivalry's bigger than Jim Harbaugh. It didn't start with him. You know what I mean? You could ask a Michigan fan, are you glad? Did you want to beat Tressel and Urban Meyer, or do you want to beat Ohio State?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So ultimately, but it's when there's someone on the other side like him, it's always fun to beat them. So, that's whatever. But, yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's get into the Commanders here.
So that was a different path. But yeah, I mean, the guy's a good coach.
Of course he is.
He's going to be good for the Chargers. He's also kind of a little bit different, and I think it's why he was never really a candidate here. Is just he's after a couple of years, man. It's a hard situation usually with him and upper management.
Well, let me ask you this one, too, because Bill Belichick's not going to be the coach here. We've known that for a long time, and it looks like he's not going to be a coach anywhere this year, short of some kind of left field surprise from a team we're not thinking about who fires their coach and hires him, which I guess is still possible, but it's a surprise. Are you surprised that he's not coaching somewhere next year?
Yes, because I thought, all along you thought, well, probably Atlanta but the only jobs that I thought he would probably go to would be Atlanta, the Raiders, or the Chargers. And then the Raiders, and they did that. And then the longer it went on, the Chargers clearly were locked in on Harbaugh. And then you kind of take that away. And then in Atlanta, it was basically if the people who recommended to the owner, yes, hire him, if they do that, they're basically telling him to fire us because they're not staying. That whole front office probably gets blown out if they hire Belichick. And so, you look at all these factors as to why, and yes, I'm surprised he'll be out of the league for at least a year. And you have to wonder too, then what after that, because someone will probably take a shot at him, right? I mean,
I would think so.
If Dallas doesn't do something next year, then why not? He's a guy who only probably coached for 5 more years, and you have a team that's ready to win right now. That would make sense. So, but yeah, I'm surprised. But really, in the end, there was really only a couple spots for him. He obviously was never, despite whatever was out there, he was never in play here. Yeah, no, I mean, it's going to be it'd be surprising not to have that guy on the sidelines. Think about that too, football in the fall period without Saban or Belichick. Kind of weird.
I got to tell you, if somebody puts the two of them in a booth, that's can't miss television. If the two of them are sitting there breaking down games, oh my God.
I would listen to a podcast just of them breaking down, a play. I'd almost rather listen to just because the level of insight would be phenomenal, and they're both very good at giving it. I mean, it would be tremendous.
Okay, let's get into the Commanders here. I've been, like Adam Peters was a slam dunk if he wanted the job. I think that process started way earlier, and they quickly got that deal done. And we've all believed Ben Johnson was the candidate that they wanted to get. However, it was my information, and I think yours too, that they were more open-minded to talking to other candidates and potentially hiring somebody else. But as things have kind of matriculated here, it's pretty clear what's about to happen. So I take it this is not a surprise that this is going this way, that Ben Johnson is in all likelihood going to be the next head coach of this team as early as next week if the Lions lose this weekend. But where are you on where things stand right now?
Yeah, well, they've done the Zoom interviews. They have the in-person ones early next week. So, yes, if the Lions lose, then I would expect a decision to be made probably like Tuesday. I mean, you could see it as early as Tuesday, right? Because if they interview them Monday and or Tuesday, then by Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, you probably have your guy. So, but one thing, and like you said, one thing I always have known with this group is they're willing to be blown away. I think you're right. Like Adam Peters was the number one target, and that was going to be the guy. Like Bob Myers coming on already knew him. So like that was just different than this one. And but if Mike McDonald goes in there and blows him away, do you say, what? And Ben Johnson doesn't, then I could see a little bit of a late swerve. But it seems like by what you hear from people that Johnson is a clear communicator and, that will help him in those interviews. So I think knowing that, then yes, you would expect him. I mean, right now, would anybody be surprised if he's the guy? No. Would I be surprised if they went in a different direction? A little bit, yeah, definitely. He's the number one guy, and I think it was very telling that Atlanta and Carolina moved on.
Yes.
That to me was like the big thing. Okay. And Seattle will be interesting. They're interviewing Dan Quinn today. They still have interest in Ben Johnson, but their list is also different than Washington's. So they have, it's funny because the only crossovers I believe are Quinn and Ben Johnson. So,
not McDonald? They're not talking to McDonald?
I don't think they have. I have to check my list, but I know they have talked to Evero, who is with Carolina, who's very well respected. Patrick Graham, another guy very well respected. Let me see if I have my list here, Bram. Kafka, the Giants OC. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and Mike McDonald. Yes. Sorry.
Oh, see, because to me, not that this is Seattle sports radio, but after what I saw that guy do against the Shanahan tree offenses, specifically at San Francisco, and then last week against Houston, knowing they're in a division with Shanahan and McVay for however long it's going to be, I want that guy because I want to know what he knows. That he seems to be the only one that has figured out how to slow those offenses down. I want him.
Well, he has, but I will say yes, and that's one thing. I think McVay's offense did fine against him. The one hard part that I've seen, or one thing I've seen, is that the more you go against them, the more the teams in the division. The Browns scored 33 against them. Zach Taylor, the Bengals did a pretty good job against them, and I think McVay did too. However, guy is really good, and you're right. That would be something that would be attractive to me, is exactly that. And putting aside I just think he's a good coordinator, regardless of what else is in that division, right? And I think the question to me is, first of all, he's adaptable with his D, and I think that's one thing that to me is very appealing. And we saw that here when you are stuck in your ways and it doesn't work. That's what we saw here, right? And so, that is not him. And so I think that is a huge selling point to me. But with any of these first-time coordinators, Bram, you know this, what you don't know, it's almost like if you have a free agency with quarterbacks. Do you want the steady, proven veteran that could probably take you far, or are you going to roll the dice on a flashy new young toy? That's what the coordinators versus some of the versus like, whether it's a Raheem Morris or Dan Quinn or somebody who's coached before and has had some success or something, or do you go with the hotshot young guy? And I think, we don't know what kind of leaders they are. We don't, in a full setting, we don't know all that. But man, they've proven themselves as coordinators.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Okay, so I'm with you on the second. Carolina and Atlanta just moved on without even having the in-person interview. Yeah. Says much more to me that I don't think he wasn't a prime candidate for them. I think behind the scenes he's telling them he's not taking their job. I mean, so you could read it one of two ways. There either wasn't the level of interest that we perceived it was, but I actually think it's more like everybody knows this is in the bag, and so they just moved on. That's how I've read it.
That's how I read it too. And Carolina chased him last year too. So, listen, in league circles, the marriage all along that I'd heard was Peters-Johnson. And so that's not a widely kept secret. And now again, that's league circles. This group, so just for people listening, like, this group is very quiet about what's going on. So, and it's just about anything you see is coming like that says that, who's talked to, what they've done, it's coming from the outside. It's not coming from them. And so that's, I only say that to say, like, we don't fully know exactly what they're thinking. We do know, like, I do know that, Peters clearly likes Ben Johnson, but I don't know, does he like him more than Mike McDonald, or Aaron Glenn? Aaron Glenn has really good leadership skills. So, that's the hard part. But like you, my reading of it was they know he's not going to, they know they shouldn't wait for him, period. And I think it's interesting that, I mean, I knew Washington was very high on his list coming into this. So, and there's no way Carolina should have been. No way. None.
So I'm getting ahead of it, obviously, but like, let's just say he's named the coach. Okay. I believe that he will bring somebody from the Lions staff to be his offensive coordinator, somebody he's worked with who knows his offense and implements it, and he's the head coach. The question will be who the defensive coordinator is. And I wonder if you have any sense, do you think he would go outside of the Lions to find that person? You named Evero from Carolina, who I know has an incredible reputation. That would be an interesting one to me. Are you getting any kind of read on what his staff would look like if he came in here?
Not fully. Hank Fraley, the O-line coach in Detroit, would be one to watch. To me, the number one hire of an offense, a guy in Ben Johnson's position, the number one hire for him is the offensive line coach, because he already has his offense. He knows the offense. It may be somebody else to call him plays. He knows the offense, but you need the run game. You need the guy coaching the line, the run game coordinator, the pass protection guy. That's the O-line coach. So if Fraley, that's the name you hear. Now, Detroit also has a linebackers coach, Kelvin Shepard, who has a really good reputation and is a guy that, if Aaron Glenn leaves, let's say Washington hires Aaron Glenn instead, Shepard probably elevates to the DC position in Detroit. So, like, is that a guy he would look at to bring? And Evero, by the way, shares an agent with Ben Johnson. So that's another part of the equation, and he has a really good reputation. Now, I don't know, I don't know. Yeah, that would be. I don't know if you're Carolina. You can't let him get out. You can't let him go.
Well, they didn't give him the head coaching job. So
I know that, but I don't know what his contract status is, but that doesn't mean that, he's going to be gone.
Right.
But the way to bring him on board, if you really wanted to, you could make him an assistant head coach / defensive, coordinator, whatever. So, like, there's a way, but if they got him, it'd be a great hire. Now, the one thing, and it's funny because I was talking about this with somebody earlier, that when you're a young coach like that, to me, one of the best things you can do, though, is bring somebody in who has a lot of experience as a coach, because there's going to be a lot of things that you haven't dealt with that you're going to need some sort of long-time voice who can help you out. And it doesn't matter which side of the ball, really, right? But it'd be nice if you have Evero is experienced on D. I would have no problem just giving him the thing and go, but I'd want someone on my staff somewhere that has that level of experience, because it is a hard thing to do.
Well, I mean, that's what Philly's doing. Yeah. That's what Philly's doing. Their fix is we're going to get a steady hand to run the defense here. And that's why I think Rivera was a serious candidate, and they ended up with Fangio, because they want the steady hand to be there and help Sirianni if there's a mess, next year.
Well,
again.
It's like Sean McVay goes to L.A., defense coordinator Wade Phillips.
Yes.
And, now, you know what I mean? So something, and I don't know who that guy would be. Is it Wink Martindale? And he wasn't a head coach, but he's been a long-time guy. And so I don't know. He's out there, but I don't know that he would or not.
That's a style of defense that I'm not sure I love, but anyway, that's all I know is Washington got 2 more wins a year when he left the Giants. That's true. But do you want? Let me ask you this question then: do you want Emmanuel Forbes on an island every play? Because that's what's going to happen with Wink Martindale, and I'm going to go with I don't, but I don't know if you do.
Okay, that's fine, but does that then you're assuming that would be his style of corner too? So, and that's all fair. Like I'm just saying, like his experiences, I'm not even pushing for it. His name is out there. He's an experienced coordinator. I would take Evero because I think he's a guy that can be really good. The only problem with him is you probably lose him in a year or two.
Yeah,
but that's a good problem to have. That means you've had success, so that's what you want.
Well, I mean, here's the other one that's out there that I think is worth mentioning: Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel's not going to get a job.
Yeah, but
there's a steady hand who's been around a long time who could be a DC and then go somewhere else next year and probably be a head coach again.
Yeah, yes, he could. I just the thing I was wondering about guys like that. Would you really want to go back to being a DC this year? Do you really need to? You can sit out a year and then probably get a head coaching job next year.
Yeah, maybe.
I would almost rather do that. I'd almost rather do that than doing anything else and have your pick of something next year. But that's what I would do. But I don't know about Vrabel. So
okay.
I mean, that would be a good hire, but for him, what's in it for him? It'd be great for whoever coaches here.
All right, let me ask you this one because you're on your podcast opining about Kirk because he's available. We have the number 2 overall pick here. Why do you think it's possible they would consider that in free agency, knowing what you'd have to pay him to come in here on what is clearly an incomplete roster?
I don't know that they would, Bram. And the only reason I bring it up is because if you come into a situation, you need to look at everything possible. Should you at least look at that? Yes. But if you like Jaden Daniels a ton, you say, you know what? Yeah, Kirk be this, but I love Jaden Daniels. Then take Jaden Daniels. It's a no-brainer. You're going to have your shot at that guy. But if you look at it and say, I don't know if these guys so let's say they hire Ben Johnson. The reason why I even bring up Kirk, and again, I'm not pushing it, it's just look at every option. We have 3 months before the draft, 2 months, a month and a half or so before free agency. There's a lot to talk about, and I think you need to cover every situation, right? This is an owner who, if you go to him and say, we're going to do this, he's going to say, well, what about free agency? Are there any free agents? Well, yeah, Kirk Cousins. Well, why not look at him? Well, blah, he wants an answer. So to me, you have to explore every situation to have a mountain of information to present to the owner about why you want to go this direction or that direction. But if you're Ben Johnson, so when you look at his offense, who's a perfect fit? That guy is. Doesn't mean they do it. It's just that he's that style of offense fits him to a T. Do any of these, if you're, again, you Ben Johnson coming here with Jaden Daniels, Drake May, you're going to have to adapt what you do. So you're not going to see Detroit's offense with those guys here. Certainly not for a few years. So that's the only reason. If you wanted to go that route, then you're clearly investing $45-50 million. Do you really want to do that?
Yeah, all your cap space goes into a middle-aged quarterback who's coming off an Achilles tear on an incomplete roster.
No, I didn't say they would or should, but I'm just saying, how do you at least not look at everything possible? If you want to say, okay, we love these rookie quarterbacks, go with them. But if you say, you know what, I like them, but then you look at, is there somebody in a trade? Well, maybe not. Is there someone in free agency? Well, yeah, this guy is. But he's going to cost us 45 or 50, And like you said, he's older. He's coming off the Achilles. He's not a mobile guy, so the Achilles won't hurt him as much as it may hurt a more mobile quarterback like a Wentz who was damaged by his knee stuff because he couldn't adapt to being a pocket passer. So my thing is you just look at everything possible to make sure that this is the best road for you. So you can look at it and cross it off, but at least you looked at it. And you said, just like when they were, I don't know. I just think it's better to be prepared and to do your due diligence on everything. However, the cons are, again, 45 to 50. Oh, they're coming off that. And where's he going to take you? Because if, let's say it's 3 years, what's going to happen? So in that 3 years, you still need to draft your next quarterback.
Yeah.
Unless you think, hey, in 2 years I could get Sam Howell to do this. Unless you think that, you're going to have to draft a quarterback. But I'm going to play it out for a minute. And again, I'm not pushing for this. I like the idea of getting a young quarterback and developing and getting 5 years at that salary. I think that's highly appealing. But if you play it out, you sign him in free agency, you trade out of 2. You trade to the back end of the top 10 or so, and you're going to get more picks to restock a roster that needs a lot of restocking. And then, to me, you have to get a number 1 pick next year. But playing it out some more, let's say you do that. Let's say you trade with Atlanta. Atlanta moves up, takes Jaden Daniels. You get the 8th pick. Well, let's say Atlanta have a good roster. There's a good chance that they're going to be at least 500 or 8 or 9 wins, maybe 10. And maybe that's where you are with Kirk, is that 8-win range. So now you have 2 picks around 20. Not as appealing. You know what I mean? So, that's to me, it's like, oh, it sounds great to have another number 1 pick, but it may be 2 lower picks. So what are you going to do with that? You can't. It's hard to move up with that. So, that to me is where it starts to fall apart, definitely. And again, everything hinges on how much do you like these quarterbacks. If you think, Drake May, Kirk, of course, would be better now, but in 2 years, Drake May or Jaden Daniels is going to blow them out of the water. No brainer. Take one of them. Easy call.
Okay, because
the
risk here is if Jaden Daniels ends up being a stud, that is a huge mistake. You know what I mean? Like a huge mistake.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. That's why if your fear is that, take them. It's okay. And to me, that's the same thing. Like, there are a lot of people who don't want to take a quarterback because Zach Wilson didn't hit or this quarterback didn't hit. That's fine. You can't draft scared. But if you're, I'd rather take a quarterback and miss on him than not take him and see him hit somewhere else. Because back in the day, yes, it was hard to recover from the quarterback because the money involved. You can still, you could take a quarterback at 2 this year. You could take another one in the 3rd or 4th round next year. Or maybe you still, if it's Jaden Daniels, you can still have Sam Howell on the roster.
That's right.
And maybe, maybe in 3 years he perfects this offense and now he's ready to be a starter again, So, there's multiple ways with it. But if they stay at 2, it's 100% you have to take a quarterback. It's not even a consideration to do anything else. It should be. It should be. But like I said, the only reason I bring it up is just do your due diligence. Is there anything in free agency? Well, here's the guy that's interesting. And if it, and the only interesting part, Bram, is I do believe he would want to come back here and play. I think he'd be open to that. But it's well, for 45 or 50 million, I'd probably play anywhere. So,
I can't believe I'm saying this, but Keim, you like that. I don't know why you like that.
But no, make no mistake. I am on, drafting one of these quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But if you have hesitation, and it's they're just, because I've talked to some people, who aren't as high on this class.
Right.
But I mean, it's a high ceiling and it's 5 years of control at a good salary. You have a really good chance to build the rest of that roster.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the championship games. I'll talk to you next week. Appreciate it as always.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, it's John Keim from ESPN, John Keim Report. All right, we'll be right back and we'll preview Championship Sunday next. Bray, watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. So I just saw on Twitter, somebody cited Adam Schefter pontificating, and I don't know that's true. It doesn't come directly from Schefter, but someone saying that he said if Andy Reid retires, Bill Belichick would be the next head coach of the Chiefs, which that would be the out of left field thing that I've been waiting for. Because the whole time I'm like, this guy's going to get shut out of a job across the league? really? And I've been waiting for who's the team that has a coach that's going to make the move and do it? And it's not going to be the Ravens. It's not going to be the Lions. It's not going to be the 49ers of the teams that are playing. Maybe the Andy Reid retirement stuff is semi-real. Maybe.
I'm going to come off harsh here. I don't believe him. I think Schefter has been in Belichick's bag this whole entire process. Belichick has, of course, friends all over the place, but clearly Florio and Schefter are pulling the water for Bill. Because Schefter, I think it was yesterday morning on Get Up or on Sportsmanlike, basically compared Belichick to it was 2 days ago, Belichick to not being signed to Brady not being signed. He goes, well, look at all the mistakes all of those teams made. Only 2 teams went after Brady, the Chargers and the Bucks. So I think teams are making the same mistake here with Bill.
And I think Brady wanted to go to the Raiders, and they didn't want
Right. I think Brady wanted to go to the Niners, too.
You're sticking with that MF. Right?
Yes, correct. And when Schefter said that, I was kind of like, that's a little harsh for a league that skews younger. I know he's the GOAT. Like, don't get me wrong. But skews younger. People, like minorities, are getting more of a chance now. This is what the league wants, actually. And
he's won so much.
I agree, but Schefter, but I'm just saying the way Schefter has gone about talking about it, that like it's some crime that Bill will have to sit out a year because somebody's going to sign him next year.
No, it's like I don't know. Rick Pitino keeps getting jobs because he wins so much.
Sure, but you also
it's hard to ignore it with him.
You have to upend everything, and does it not scare you if you are an executive, of a team that he hasn't won without Brady yet? Like, that should be concerning to you.
I guess. I know there are, and this is the greatness of Brady, why I think he's the best ever, but the reality is also there's a lot of great players and great quarterbacks that didn't win nearly on that level because you can't replicate it every year. Well, they did. He had to have a role in that. Like, sure. I think dismissing that part of it is unfair to him.
But I'm not dismissing that.
Andy Reid for years didn't win a Super Bowl with really good teams. Peyton Manning won 1 with the Colts. Drew Brees won 1 with the Saints. Dan Marino never won 1. John Elway, it took forever for him to win 1. Like I don't know. Josh Allen hasn't won 1 yet. Like, I don't know. Like I agree that on the greatness scale, it's Brady over Belichick at this point, but still, he played a role in it. They did it every year. It never fell off. Like, I'm sorry, but you can't not give him credit for that. There are plenty of examples of guys who've had great players that didn't do it every single year.
I'm not knocking Bill on that. I'm just saying Schefter's acting as a pseudo agent right now.
Yeah, maybe.
And because also, if you bring him in, you have to upend your entire structure.
Okay.
Period.
Well, I don't know. I'm looking at the Chiefs right now, and I'm going, is Eric Bieniemy not being there the reason why their offense is average this year? Because it's average this year.
Right.
It's been average the whole year.
Sure, but when push comes to shove, Mahomes was Mahomes last week in Buffalo.
Right.
Without Tony. I mean, not that Tony's been amazing, but he was an option all year long. I don't know. They just have not as great players, but when it's, clutch time, he does what he does. That sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Brady had nobody those last few years except for, Amendola and, who's the other random white wide receiver that I can't think of right now? Wes Welker. Like, I'm just saying, it was
David
always...
Patton.
Yes, it's just... He had
Deion Branch, who was like a stud.
He went both ways.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just saying, Brady started... You're starting to see what Mahomes... You're seeing Mahomes do what Brady started to do. And I'm not taking anything away from Bill. But I'm just saying, I think teams are getting scared because they know the second they bring him in, it upends everything. And I think just that
But if
scares
Andy
people.
Reid's going to go and you have Pat Mahomes, don't you want the steadiest of steady hands?
No,
there?
I think it's fine.
I mean,
No.
in that case, like I want somebody who's, I'm not taking a chance on somebody with Pat Mahomes under contract here, and then it goes sideways.
Sure.
It's too big of a thing for him to deal with.
No, I agree
it will
with you on
not be too big of a thing for him to. Nothing's too big of a thing for him to deal with.
I hear what you're saying with the Chiefs. I just think if it's Schefter pontificating that, just take it with a grain of salt is all I'm saying.
All I want
is
if that were to happen, this is all I want.
Yeah.
I want Kevin Durant saying, go at Bill Belichick the way you came at me when I went to the Warriors. Go chasing those rings, are you, Bill?
Yeah,
go at him.
Right.
Go at him like you came at me for going to play with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. Remember how you came at me for that? You better go at him for going into what is a winning situation with an MVP quarterback in the prime of his career.
All I'm saying is watch out when Schefter's saying things about him now, because I'm not buying it with Schefter and him saying stuff about Bill. The way he came out the other day and was like almost like knocking the league for not hiring this guy. And he comes with all this baggage.
I'm not in knocking the league mode, but I am in the perplexed. I can't believe someone didn't scoop him up. He is who he is.
Sure.
You're kidding, right? Like, we're ignoring his record? Are you kidding?
Right.
How could that guy not get it? That's why I'm saying this is the out of left field thing's going to be him. Something's in the works here. We don't know what it is. Something's in the works.
I think he's taking a year to sit.
All right, we'll see.
I think my original prediction actually will hold up now. I think he goes to the Eagles.
Oh, God.
I think Sirianni, because
I think if they go bust in New York, he could go to the Giants. That's a possibility.
He could be at any of the 3 NFC East teams not named us.
True. I thought they were going to fire McCarthy and bring him in. I was like, Dallas ought to do it.
I think we're at that point right now.
Maybe. Could be.
Remember the pre-firing segment? All 3 of those dudes on the hot seat, and Belichick could take any of their positions.
My feed is also littered now with some artist who did a Taylor Swift mural in a Lamar Jackson jersey, which is really amazing, up in Baltimore, hon.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's really great. And I mean, it's really great.
Is she not going to come to M&T Bank now?
She's coming, right? She's got to be coming there, right?
No, she has no more American dates anymore. I don't think so.
She's coming to the game, right?
To the game. Yeah. No, but I meant for the concert.
By
the way, no one ever talked about that, how she didn't perform in Baltimore.
Oh, that's right.
Didn't do FedEx because it was Snyder. But
here comes the get back.
Why didn't she go in Baltimore?
Okay, now you're done. We're done with you, Taylor. All right, so let's get into the games.
Let's get into that.
Okay. Obviously, on Sunday, I'll spend a lot of time talking about them because we'll be doing a preview show from Dudley's over in Shirlington 1-3. But I'll give you my thoughts here now as we head into the weekend. On the A1, do AFC first?
Yeah, let's do AFC.
Okay. AFC first kicks off 3 o'clock. Chiefs, Ravens, heavyweight title fight.
Are we in agreement? Winner of this wins the Super Bowl?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. I think this is the.
No. I think if the Chiefs somehow win this game, I would say that there's an opening for either Detroit or San Francisco to knock them off. I think if Baltimore wins, they're going to. I mean, they've already steamrolled both of those teams. Killed.
Yes, killed them. Yep.
Both of them. Right. Detroit here, that game wasn't even close. Nope. And San Francisco, that was the first time I've seen them embarrassed in years. They were embarrassed.
Purdy's worst game. Period.
By far.
Yep.
So on the AFC Championship game, it is. And this goes back to a Brady conversation. You're a fool if you go against him because this guy's done it too many times over and over and over. He finds a way to do it. I will also say this about them last week in Buffalo, which first time they'd played a real true road playoff game with him as the quarterback. What I saw from them was a far more professional operation than I've seen, and I mean this they weren't messing around. Yeah. They weren't doing these, we're going to ring around the rosy on you, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. They didn't game it up. They played those dudes straight up, tried not to make a lot of mistakes, let Buffalo make the mistakes, and beat them because they currently, this year, never turned on the turbojet. It just never happened this year. Mahomes is a tough out, maybe the toughest out we've seen outside of Brady.
Yep, agree.
It may be in forever, but I don't think he's going to win tomorrow. I don't think they score enough points. I don't think they're going to run the ball as effectively as they did against Buffalo at all. I think that crowd's going to be berserker. They haven't had this in a very long time. I think it's Lamar's turn. I think they're going to be able to run the ball relatively effectively here against them. And if they get a lead, I actually see this going downhill a little bit more than I would have normally envisioned. And I'll just tell you the metric that just says everything to me. The Chiefs are scoring 21 points a game this year. That's not enough.
Right.
The Ravens have the best scoring defense in the league. I know this guy is an all-time great, and knocking him out is one of the hardest things to do, but he is not on the right team this year. I will be stunned if Baltimore doesn't win this game. By how much? I don't know. I don't think it's a blowout because it's the Chiefs and it's Mahomes and it's Andy Reid, and good luck. It's going to be one of the best well-coached teams, and Mahomes will make plays that keeps them alive. But if they don't get beat deep by these receivers, they'll give up whatever they give up to Kelsey. Pacheco's not going to have the numbers he had in Buffalo, and I just don't see them scoring enough. Ravens go to the Super Bowl 28-20.
I think I had a little lower scoring this morning, like a 27-23. All the reasons you said, running the ball is going to be the difference here. The Ravens defense is going to be better than the Chiefs defense.
Yes, it is.
Like they're going to be like dominant, I think. The other thing here is, and not that no one's talking about it, but Mark Andrews got reactivated today. Yep. Like that offense has been clicking on all cylinders without him. I made this joke to you literally like 8 weeks ago that since he left the offense, they were head and shoulders above better because I think it forced Lamar to start looking elsewhere. The fact that he's now being reintroduced to that offense tells me the offense is about to pick up another gear than what it's been in before. I'm with you. Like, it's going to look close on the scoreboard, but this game,
they can't blow him out because it's Mahomes. But
right, exactly.
I don't see the Chiefs winning without mistakes from the Ravens, and they're not making them.
And see, that's what I was going to say. That's how they won that game last week. They played that game conservatively enough that they just needed Buffalo to screw up a few times, and that literally was the difference between the game. Granted, Buffalo missed a field goal. It could have been tied and gone to overtime, but who are we taking in overtime 10 times out of 10? I'm taking Mahomes.
It's not going to get there.
Right.
It's not going to get there.
But I'm just saying from last week, like they still might have won that game regardless. I'm taking the Chiefs. I don't think it's close right now. I also just think
you're taking the Ravens.
Or sorry. Yeah, I'm taking the Ravens, and it's how hot the Ravens are right now too. It's actually not indicative of the Chiefs. It's just the Ravens have been rolling for 2 months basically at this point.
They have been by far not close the best team in the league 2 months running.
Yep.
That San Francisco game ought to tell you everything you need to know.
Yep,
they embarrassed them. So I think they're going to win and they'll get to the Super Bowl. As for the NFC game.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the week, I was pretty convinced after what I've seen from San Francisco recently, and just I know the effort that you're going to get out of Detroit, that the Lions would, and I said this on Monday, I go, if it's today, like if this game was tomorrow, I would pick the Lions and feel extremely confident that they're going to do it, but give me the opportunity to spend the week and think about it, right? Deebo Samuel is going to play, it looks like. That's a big deal.
Yep.
I thought if he was out, I thought that would be a really big non-overcomable type of thing for them. McCaffrey is still beat up, but he seems fine enough, but he's sitting on the bench every week and they're rubbing his thigh because he got hurt late in the season against us, actually.
Right.
They do not have much of a pass rush these days, which better change against Goff because he's a statue. He isn't going anywhere. That better change. So can Detroit run the ball enough to control the clock? I don't know.
Right.
That'll probably tell the game. If Detroit runs the ball relatively effectively, 4 yards a carry, pops off a couple here or there, controls the clock a little bit, then this game's going to be close no matter what. Goff is not making a lot of mistakes. I don't think they're going to induce him into a lot of mistakes. This will also come down to, will San Francisco's pass rush show up? Because it hasn't actually been there. And then lastly, they're going to kill Brock Purdy after this game because he's been highly inaccurate the last couple of games. And now he's on a big stage against a team that's going to bring a tremendous amount of heat. Mm-hmm. So they are going to give San Francisco opportunities to make plays down the field, which is why I think Deebo's a big deal here. They're going to give him opportunities to make plays down the field. The game is won and lost in 3 spots. Can Detroit run the ball consistently and semi-effectively? And I'll go with semi-effectively. I don't expect them to run it down their throat. Yep. Semi-effectively. Does San Francisco have a pass rush that's disappeared the last couple of weeks? I don't know. And if they don't, I think Goff is not going to make enough mistakes to ruin it for them.
Right.
And then can San Francisco make plays down the field because Purdy's going to be forced into the opportunity to do it? Aaron Glenn's going to bring pressure on him.
Right.
And Purdy's inaccuracy and apt to make mistakes the last few weeks would concern me big time. So I'm not changing my pick. I think the Lions are going to go out there and win. And I just think, I say this all the time, it's not who you play, it's when you play them. And because San Francisco doesn't have the pass rush they've had in recent weeks, may have marginalized stars like Deebo and McCaffrey, Purdy is not looking like this machine that he was. In fact, he looks wildly inaccurate and apt to make interceptions. And Goff has been there, done that, and the stage is not too big for him. This is going to be a violent, physical game between these two teams. And I think the Lions are going to win, and that Detroit is going to lose its mind. 24-20, Detroit. They win and go to the Super Bowl.
I will push back with what I heard from Graziano this morning. He said the feeling out of San Fran where all the players this week were defending Brock and basically saying, don't chalk it up to a bad weather game. They were saying things like, we can do things with this guy that we couldn't before with the other quarterbacks that were playing here, which means Garoppolo, Trey Lance, I guess, to some degree. But that basically, that's our guy, lay off a little bit. You'll see we can do things that we couldn't do before because he does things in our offense. The fact that the Purdy talk might galvanize the rest of the team and the weather looks to be fine there this weekend. I just think San Fran has a better team top to bottom.
Oh, I agree with that.
And
the other concern I have is they haven't been on this stage.
Mm-hmm.
So that San Francisco has.
Yes.
So this isn't going to be too big for them.
Correct.
And so I do worry that they're going to get a little out of their skin.
Right.
And that worries me a little bit.
So that's what I was also.
That's the only thing that really worries, because this is a first time, long time situation, and Campbell might
combust. He might combust on the side.
What scares me about them is they may come out shot out of a cannon.
Correct.
Play crazy.
So that's what
and
I was
then when
say.
it settles down, they've spent all their energy, and that worries me a little bit with them too.
That's what I was gonna say. You know, the best conservative coach is in the league, Shanahan.
Yeah.
He's the best at keeping his team calm, at having the right play calls at the right time to kind of withstand the storm. I bet you that first, if they get the ball first, or whatever their first drive is going to be, it's going to be a lot of running, some screens. It's going to be some stuff to neutralize the pass rush. It's going to be, we're going to just withstand that first quarter storm, and then we're going to be in a game where it's close, and then watch me do the work. I just think I'm taking experience here over the.
Yeah, I could see it either way. Yeah,
I'm going to go San Fran 27, Detroit 26. I think it's a 1-point game.
It's going to be close.
Super close.
Yes.
But I think it's because Shanahan plays the conservative game better than anyone else. I think Campbell, it's going to suck. They're going to lose because Campbell goes for a fourth down or goes for some play that
they are a little unhinged.
They're aggressive as hell, and I'm
yeah.
just saying that's where it swings is in the playoffs. Unfortunately, too. Like I wish more teams did what they did.
The last thing, and I hope to see this tip of the cap. It will be my tip of the cap to incoming new coach of the Commanders, Ben Johnson. If you run the ball right at Chase Young, tip of the cap, my friend.
Whenever he's on the field,
right on his edge,
right to him,
right where his edge contain is supposed to be. Run right at him. It will be tip of the cap. I see you, sir.
Someone in the crowd's like, "Come on, man!"
All right, so I got Detroit and Baltimore. You got San Fran and Baltimore.
San Fran and Baltimore rematch of 2012, 2013, whatever year they played each other. Yeah.
Oh, the Harbaugh Bowl. Oh,
yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
When the
lights went out.
Lights went out. There's a lot of conspiracy theories in that Super Bowl.
Yes.
Lights went out. Ray Lewis deer antler spray that we never investigated because he retired afterwards.
Deer antler spray,
Joe Flacco Elite got an extension.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of stuff that happened on that.
Fernando Tatis is like deer antler
Yeah.
spray, huh? Really?
Right.